Welcome back to Quintessence Virtual Retreat, Awakening Forgiveness. I'm so delighted to be here today with Anaiya Sophia. She's an author and mystic. And thank you for joining our discussion on forgiveness and how forgiveness can change and uplift our lives. And I'd like to start with just taking a couple full body breaths together, just getting really present in the space. And I'd like to just invite everyone to take a moment and just feel into what they would like to receive from this session today, and kind of set an intention for themselves around this. And I'd also like to thank everyone listening for taking the time from your day to do your healing work and focus on forgiveness. And we know that when we do our healing work, it has a ripple effect out into our family, our community, and the entire planet. So, Anaiya, could you share with us a little bit about your work?
Yes, hi everybody. Nice to see you all. Well, I guess I serve the divine feminine. And as I get older, that service changes. I'm now in the phase of storyteller.
Yeah.
I am gathering as many stories as possible that goddesses, mystics, and holy women have lived through, and I'm retelling them today, particularly whilst we're in lockdown, because I
Yeah.
want us women folk to realize that we have been in this circumstance before, and that we can rise, and we must rise, and we must forgive, and we must be forgiven, because we have agreed absolutely to be here at this time. And I feel that a third of us, a third of all humans, are closely related to archetypal energy. And it is time now to let those archetypes, those goddesses, holy women, and mystics absolutely flow through us, so that we can fulfill on the promise that we made to be here incarnated at this time.
Yeah. And so, could you share with us, how do we allow these energies to move through us? Like, what would that look like?
Well, we could literally start with the mind, with logic, where we sort of map out a compass of the characteristics we know we have. Is it bravery? Is it compassion? Is it outspokenness? Is it physical brawn? Do we have an affinity for horseback riding? I'm thinking Athena or the Amazon women. Are we absolutely a mother through and through? Are we a temple priestess? Are we a Florence Nightingale? Are we some kind of martyr? So literally pen and paper, just start noticing really strong characteristics and traits within you. And then you could go around gleaning as much information as you can on certain stories, certain goddesses, certain gods, even if you're a guy. And just start noticing what happens in your body when you start to retrace their steps, take on their story, not just listen to it, actually let it in, carry it around as your own medicine. And then there'll come a point where our human beingness is so small and awkward. And at that point, life will most likely present a perfect opportunity for us to step into this energy fully and completely, but we will be scared because we probably will sense the power of it. And we might be a little bit concerned, where is that going to lead us? Will we have any friends? Will we have a partner at the end of it? Because it is a greater power than what we've been currently used to.
Yeah. This is so interesting because it's almost like using the courage of these stories to invoke that courage into our lives to live this bigger life. You know,
Yes.
I think of one of these people for me, for whatever reason, is Joan of Arc.
Oh, wow.
Joan of Arc has always been someone that I think, because when I was young, I would talk to spirit and I would talk to the trees, and I wondered around 5 or 6 why everyone wasn't doing this.
Mm.
And I can literally remember trying to get my dad to go in the forest with me to talk to the trees. And he was just like, what are you? And I remember a part of my spirit leaving and being like, I don't think this is safe. Like, I don't think people are like talking to the tree. Like, I thought, because for me, it was just natural, you know? And so I think the story of Joan of Arc resonated so much because she was always like in this, you know, today we might have said she was schizophrenic, or maybe even back then, but she was in this intense dialogue with spirit,
Yes.
right?
Yes, yes.
And she was so devoted.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, right? To be so devoted to the guidance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When she was 12 years old, she went to the King of France, telling him about her vision. When she was 16 years old, she was given an army. This is crazy.
Right?
You know, when we imagine stepping into her shoes, well, that's what her shoes feel like.
Yeah.
And this was a regular girl.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't, and it's like, that is what we must tap into during this phase, during this threshold. You know, we're teetering on the edge of two worlds. Are we going to go back to spending and flying and guzzling oil and power plants? Or are we going to dare to step into something fresher, greener, more honest, more based on community and sharing?
Yeah.
Because if we stay as our human selves, we're just going to go straight back to where we left off. If we dare to step into qualities like Joan of Arc, or any of them, watch out, world, because it's going to change.
Yeah. And I think of this pattern interrupt that we're in, right?
Yeah.
And I think of, for myself, there are things I miss, like going to the swimming pool because I'm a swimmer, because I'm a whale. And yet, in this time, I have been surprised at how much more I'm open to just waves of bliss. I mean, and a deeper, like a deeper feeling of bliss. Like, it's a lot of times for me, it's more like heart and up, but this is like a full body waves of bliss. And I think, wow, it's because I'm not thinking of the things I could be doing, right? I'm just present with what is. And so I'm available to feel these frequencies that are there all the time, but I'm just so much more available for them. And so, you know, our discussion is about forgiveness, and I'm curious, Anaiya, would you share with us what your understanding of forgiveness is?
Mm. I think, or rather feel, um,
Mhm.
the biggest act of forgiveness is the one we have to offer ourselves.
Yes.
And there was a big change around for me when I started to use the word reverence for
Mm,
my pain and my trauma and my sadness and my loneliness. I'm a Capricorn, so I can be a little bit gung-ho,
mhm,
can be quite masculine as well.
mhm,
So I would often perhaps be a little bit annoyed with my own sadness, sorrow, and trauma. Wasn't the most patient and feminine beings until I realized that as fabulous as my masculine energy was, it wasn't healing me. I needed to
Oh.
develop some really lovely, honest, genuine, feminine energy. And
Mhm,
so I started to make a little pilgrimage on the inside. And
mhm,
if I happened to just notice some pain, some sorrow, some anger, some jealousy, I would come into contact with that as if walking towards a shrine.
mm,
So instead of being impatient and like,
mhm,
oh, you shouldn't be feeling jealous, it would be like, oh my God, oh my goodness, I am in the presence of jealousy, and absolutely bowing down at the jealousy, fear, hatred, whatever, as if it was the most sacred discovery I ever made.
mhm,
And thank you for showing me your face. And
mhm,
please, may I have the opportunity to just sit beside you for a moment.
mhm,
I'm not here to change you. That's masculine. I'm
mhm.
here to sit beside you. And that,
Yeah,
Maggie, was an absolute game changer.
yeah. And so it's almost with curiosity, right?
Mm,
That you sit beside these emotions,
yeah. And to
like the
befriend them.
openness.
I saw them as like
Yes.
two versions of myself sat on a park
Mhm.
bench.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like you sit down next to someone and you're
yeah,
kind of attracted to them, energetically,
yes,
and then you just start chatting.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And when I felt it was right, me being the being and the one beside me is the emotion, then I might put my hand on her thigh.
Hmm.
Like a little squeeze of reassurance. I get you. I feel you.
I'm there
Yeah,
with you. I love
yeah,
you.
that's right.
I
That's right.
welcome
But I didn't want to come in too soon
you.
because
Hmm.
that might make it run away.
Yes.
You got to be
Yes.
careful with these things.
Yes.
And that's why I use the word reverence.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like briefly, of this story that a Vedic shaman told me about Ganesha. And I guess before they called Ganesha Matangi was the more tribal name for Ganesha. And he said, people like our emotions, they want to keep Matangi in the basement, like
Mm.
all of our anger and rage and jealousy, all of these emotions. They want to put Matangi in the basement, and Matangi's an elephant, right? So here's Matangi like on the floor,
Yeah.
and he's like, but what you have to do is invite Matangi up to the table to
Mm.
eat with everyone else.
Yes.
And so I think of it's the same idea. And I was having this yesterday because I was just with the full moon and everything, I was
Mm.
just feeling a lot of, I get this rage that
Mm.
comes because
Mm.
of past abuse and everything. And I was like, okay, invite the rage to the table, invite it. It's a friend, it's an ally, and breathe with your rage, and be curious about your rage. And then it'll shift, and it'll kind of tell you what it's feeling, and where it's coming from. And
Yes.
and in that, in this same idea of Matangi in the basement, it's like you put Matangi in the basement because of your shame, right? Like shame or guilt about having these emotions, instead of bringing them, up into the light of the day, and saying, no, this is part of my humanness.
Yes. I
And
remember reading some beautiful words saying there are places inside all of us who has never known love.
wow.
That was another big game changer.
Can you say that for us one more time, just to let?
There are places inside of us that have never known love.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one really struck home. So I made sure, not that I'm really good at it, because I'm human, but I made sure that should anything show up that was uncomfortable and, yucky to experience, I would become present as soon as I possibly could, in case this was one of those loveless parts of me. So it's kind of like almost becoming a mother.
Yes.
A mother to these sometimes loveless, unruly, angry, upset, jealous children. See, the masculine part of me, he just wanted to straighten everything out.
Yes.
And okay, everybody, get in your best behavior.
Yes.
We have a mission to serve.
Yes. And that's interesting, because I actually see that. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I see that sometimes between the way I parent and my husband does.
Yeah.
And I know they're both valuable, and sometimes I'll get a little impatient with her needing to release emotions so much, and sometimes it feels like it's a manipulation, and sometimes I know it's just where she's at. And she's trying to get dressed the other day, and I say, Zaina, can you please, try to take some breaths, and, try to calm yourself,
Yes.
Can you stop crying, And she says to me, Mama, I don't know how to stop. It just has to keep going until it's finished. And I was like, I know, but,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
How beautiful that she knows.
Yeah.
Like, it just, her innate wisdom is like, no, it just has to finish. Like, I just have to cry until it's finished.
Yeah. That is amazing. If someone would have said that to me back in the day, and being British, like a good little Victorian girl, I'd have just gone, okay, I've stopped.
Yeah.
How wonderful. Your daughter just knows to see it through to the end.
So, Anaiya, would you be willing to share with us like a life lesson you've had around forgiveness?
Yeah. Life, definitely the big life lesson was having a relationship with a kind of narcissistic psychopath, as you do, and entering that relationship in a very naive way, believing everything's golden and with enough love, everything will get even more golden.
Yeah.
And how I was a really nice person up until that point, where I took a nice little dive into the underworld, going through all 7 gates, meeting Ereshkigal in the throne room, which is the queen of the underworld, which is all of our darkest selves. So that's the journey of Inanna, the fall into the underworld through the 7 gates, meeting Ereshkigal, which is the worst of all shadows we are capable of becoming.
Wow.
So that end point would have definitely have been the divorce and the reconciliation, the trying to come back together after such an incredible journey. And that interaction with that person was not only tragic, horrible, painful, traumatic, and unkind, but also the most perfect set of circumstances for me to find my courage, if I may say my balls, my voice, and my self-respect. So it's like I fell into the underworld as a nice little girl. I clawed my way out of the underworld as a badass and a fierce feminine. And I had my voice. I had my backbone. And now I have the greatest ally inside of me, known as discernment. And I can sniff a narcissist psychopath at 100 paces. And I don't care if he is the most handsomest dark magician ever. I'm not interested. So what a gift, what a lesson.
Yeah.
And although the interaction between us was horrible and really bad behavior through and through, I do know at the level of soul, at the level of source, this character loved me so much to fulfill that role for me.
Yes. Right.
It's like a real Judas and Jesus moment. I love that story of Judas. Apparently Judas loved Jesus the most, that when it was time to opt in, who's going to play the role of the betrayer, Judas says, "Whew, well, I guess that's me, because I just love him so much. I'm willing to do the act and to take 2,000 years of judgment for doing it. That's how much I love this sacred man."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because until we, I guess, are forced into the underworld, right, we don't really know our own strength.
No, no, no. And we
And
might also be in a little make-believe world, you know, and we might be a little bit of a dish rag. I know I had flipping welcome written across my forehead. Come on in, brush your feet on my head. I had to know about boundaries, how to make them, how to enforce them. I was way too easy.
And I guess that comes to just self-respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Value.
Value, worth.
Honoring yourself,
Self-worth.
knowing your value.
And I'm thinking about, and you don't have to get into the specifics, but I'm just thinking about for myself. So, okay, I was in an abusive relationship, and he actually was just a narcissist. He was mildly schizophrenic, but he was brilliant. And he loved nature. And, you know, we were together for 4 years, and we moved. And when we moved, he lost his footing completely, and he became violent within a month. And so one night he's he wasn't a big drinker, but he had drank wine and tequila, which is not a good combination.
Not a good mix.
Not a good mix. He was having it out with some kind of demon, and I had to work the next day, and I was just like, can you please keep it down? And he couldn't. And I'm just like in my bed trying to sleep, and literally Gandhi came to me. Gandhi came to me and he said, be peace. And I went upstairs and I was like, I can't do this, to this person. And he attacked me, but that's what had to happen for me to fully release it.
That's
right. And then I could fully release it. But it was a gift for sure, this relationship, in a lot of levels. And forgiving myself,
Yes.
So yeah.
There's that piece again, when we first opened up on the call. The big one is forgiving ourselves and all the crazy interactions we get involved with.
Yeah.
Took me a long time. And it wasn't so much I had to forgive myself for being with him. I had to forgive myself for choosing him.
Yeah.
Like, did I not know? Yes, I knew, but I did it anyway. I knew where this one was going. But I jumped on.
And you have to complete it sometimes. You have to complete it. And so for me, that was completing it, because Gandhi being there for me, and I mean, it was like I could see Gandhi in front of me. And it was like I embodied the peace, and I knew that there was nothing inside of me that was causing his behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And before, I had always, when there were little things, he'd never really been violent, but he'd be kind of, I don't know. And I always thought, oh, I played into that, And this time it was like my energy was so clear.
Yeah.
I couldn't put it back on myself, So, Anaiya, could you tell us, are there any specific techniques or, maybe allies a little bit that you called on to kind of cultivate forgiveness?
Yeah. I mean, I've always, since I was a little girl, I've always been on a Christ path. Not in a Christian, I go to church way, but I just love, well, to say I love the Holy Spirit is just silly, but I've always had that affinity, of the Sacred Heart, of the Holy Spirit. I always imagine what it must have been like to stand on the Mount of Beatitudes when Jesus spoke out the Lord's Prayer for the first time. That's a really strong visual for me. So Holy Spirit is where I go to every time. And, sometimes it's a white glowing dove. Sometimes it's a feminine presence. Sometimes it has no gender whatsoever. It's grace. It's mercy. It's, the most heavenly, holy energy I can certainly imagine. So that's what I do. I only pray. I don't do anything else. I don't I call upon, Isis, Hathor. I love all of these beings. I find, ancient mythology amazing. But when it's time for healing, there's only one I call upon, and that's the Holy Spirit. And I try to keep my prayer as simple and as humble, and if anything, as childlike as possible.
Yeah.
Really honest, one-to-one, intimate and personal. Yeah.
And I'm thinking back to the reverence, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's
there it is again.
interesting when you say that, because I'm just thinking of how when I was little, I really thought my parents were God.
Ah, nice.
And and I remember mourning when I realized that they weren't God,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
God was something bigger,
yeah,
more encompassing.
yeah.
But the reason I'm bringing that up is that there is something about being held by the Holy Spirit, or like being
Mm-hmm.
held in that energy where
Yeah,
you feel completely safe to just share and
yeah.
know that whatever it is will be welcomed and loved
Mm,
and honored,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. To me, the Holy Spirit is it's just goodness.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
niceness, it's goodness.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an old-fashioned word. We maybe don't use it so much anymore. The Holy Spirit is good.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Mm-hmm.
all the good things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that level of simplicity.
Yeah. And could you share with us a little bit about how forgiveness has kind of changed your life, you would say?
Well, forgiveness has most definitely deepened and widened my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's made me warmly more loving and available. Certainly not as afraid as I once was. Not afraid of people, not afraid of closeness. Um, my edges have softened.
Mm-hmm.
It's 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 been the only healing modality. It always comes to that. Even if
Yeah.
I'm turning up to my osteopath, like, oh, I have a really tense diaphragm. Please, can you help me release it? Thinking I'm going into body work. And she's so brilliant. She will also bring me to forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like any tension in the body, any tension in the mind, any physical illness, perhaps, any disgruntlement with relationship, any awkwardness with our careers and jobs. It all comes down to forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this is the healing balm that just wipes everything clean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's the main thoroughfare of healing throughout my life. There is nothing else.
Yeah.
More and more
Yeah.
forgiveness. I'm not interested in superpowers.
Yeah.
I want more heart. I want to
Yeah.
love more. And I
Yeah.
don't mind being loved more either.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we have to be able to be available for that, right?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. I've been going around saying, I just want to love. I realize,
Yeah.
but that means you're going to be loved that much back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just in kind of closing up, you know, so many people say to forgive, and that they forgive, and not forget.
Mm,
And I'm curious if you have anything to kind of.
yeah, definitely. I don't forget. I totally forgive. But there is an awareness. And that's discernment again, I feel. There is an awareness, there is a mark in
Mm-hmm.
my consciousness, especially if it involves another person. Some people say you can forgive at such a great depth that that mark will be gone. Well, right here and now in this moment, I don't want that mark gone. I need that little mark to remain. It doesn't mean that that person is bad and what we experienced is bad, but it needs to be noted.
Yeah.
Like it's gone down in the hall of records. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because those are the things that allow us to set healthy boundaries with
so yeah, I
people
feel so.
in
Yeah,
the future, right? And
yeah,
healthy, I know we shouldn't have expectations of people, but I think of expectations as a boundary as
yes,
well within the
yes.
relationship. And so I've had many relationships in my life where maybe my expectation was something they couldn't meet. And so I realized like, so so I had to tighten my boundary around what kind of relationship I'm going to have with this person.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And then I can fully show up in the relationship, right?
yes,
Because I have my boundaries
absolutely.
intact.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This mark I'm talking about, it's also a note of myself as well. So it's not
Mhm.
as if I'm stacking up, you know, loads of things that people have done wrong. No, no, no. It really is like a hall of records. It's like Thoth, the Egyptian scribe. He's noted what happened. He's also noted my interaction with this.
Mhm.
And that's what I mean by it has been noted. It
Mhm.
has not been forgotten, but it's definitely not the other person. It's the two. It's myself and that person, or myself and that place. That
Yeah,
to me
and
that feels
also,
important. I've
yeah,
also
and to not
yeah,
set yourself up, right, for the
that's right.
same, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what happened to me there? Oh, yes, I was terribly naive. Okay, noted. Naivety and narcissist. Ah, yes, yes.
Mhm,
The
mhm,
full lesson learnt, catalogued, and put in the right place.
mhm, mhm. Thank you so much for this discussion. This has just been delightful. And
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate just your openness and willingness to have this kind of intimate conversation.
Well,
And
likewise, I must say.
and I would love to just take a couple breaths together and just kind of just send this dialogue out as a prayer, into the universe.
Mm.
That breathing feels so good.
Yeah, it sure does.
So I'd just like to say, may all beings everywhere be happy and free.
Yeah.
And may our thoughts, words, and actions contribute to the happiness and freedom of all beings everywhere.
Amen to
Thank
that,
you so
sister.
much.
Yay. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.